We would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging the Gimoi Walabara Yidinji people, the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet and record this podcast on. Art vs. Artist is a no BS podcast that dives into the raw technical guts of the creative industries. I'm your host, Yana Dryden, filmmaker, international award winner, and most importantly, Best Film and People's Choice Award winner at Understory 2024. We bring in the heavyweights, the pros, the visionaries, the ones shaping the scene to break down what it really takes to make art that hits hard and holds up in North Queensland. By interviewing artists, we uncover the gems, the grit, and the game-changing insights that fuel the future of creativity, backed by the Creative Life crew at Cairns Regional Council. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Art vs. Artists. This is the second part of my amazing discussion with Jonathan Shiff, so enjoy.
Yes, and I think filmmaking, at the end of the day, it does need the passion and the vision, you know. I mean, there are obstacles that you meet, particularly as an emerging filmmaker. You know, like we live in a really harsh environment where young people today are on social media, and social media can be really good, but social media can be really dispiriting, really destructive. You've got a lot of people going, oh, that's stupid, I hate that, or I don't like that idea, and that's really dumb, I don't know, you're never going to be able to do that, or, you know, there's always going to be voices like that around you. You need to find people who see your vision or share your vision or have an open mind or can be supportive or who can help bring something to the table to realize your vision. And so any artistic endeavor is difficult enough, and it's just going to be more difficult if you're surrounded by people who are bagging you all the time. You need to have supportive people and excited people. You don't need a big team to do that, by the way. You can have a very small project and a small team, but you need to have people that you enjoy being with, because a lot of for 7 months you're going to be filming with them. For 7 months I'm going to be doing editing and post-production and putting music and planning a marketing campaign and so on. So, the cycles of my shows used to be something like 18 months between, and that doesn't count the thinking of the idea or the developing of the idea. I mean, H2O was quite quick in coming to fruition because I had done Ocean Girl for 3 years. So I kind of knew, the how to film underwater, how to do, support safety on scuba and so on, how to audition, how to find someone who had both the athletic skills, the underwater skills, and also the acting skills and so on. The boating side of it, going back to my early memories of Ocean Girl, walking down the Port Douglas Marina, helping move the gear, because I used to direct second unit in those days. On the Supersport out of Townsville. We used to go out from Monday to Friday on the Supersport at Slep 22. And so whilst the main unit was shooting in Port Douglas with the director, main unit director, I was young and fit then. So I'd go out and sleep on the boat with the crew, and we'd start at 4 a.m. before light to get the Zodiac in the water, and the cameras weigh a ton because they're in underwater housings and so on. And so I remember somebody from the main unit unloading and bringing me tripods along with the cameras, and I would say that, mate, I'm not going to use a tripod, mate. The boat's going to be moving quite a lot, mainly from side to side, depending on what the weather's like out there at beyond Low Isles at outer Reef. And so Opal Reef, where we used to shoot. And so, you don't need a spreader and you don't need a tripod. You just need to put that camera on your shoulder, and you need to not get seasick when you're doing it, so on. And so we had, we trained people, and eventually we had a rhythm to doing it all and an idea. And that a lot of that skill sets from Ocean Girl came into H2O. So we're off and running. What we had to design beyond that were, of course, the tails were weighing like 35 kilos a tail, and they were very expensive tails. Done by Jason Baird, an Academy Award-winning special effects prosthetic house on the Gold Coast. And so JMBFX, so they did the tails, and, we had to have, we had neoprene, and then we had other layers of latex, and we had 5,000 individual scales on every, they have a hand put on every, glued on every tail and so on. And so, and they were tied by cable ties, not zips. And so the girls boys had to actually give us 45 minutes heads up if they wanted to go to the loo, because it took about 45 minutes to turn them around, had to get out of the water with the stunty, had to be pulled on the rubber mats across, whether in SeaWorld or open water. Often we're in open water or in the broadwater in the Gold Coast. And so you had to be pulled on mats. And then you had to be, literally, they had to cut all the cable ties, pull you out of there, and then fix your eyes and get you, then you had to run to the loo and then come back and repeat the whole prep performance to wind you. In the meantime, we'd have hopefully something else to shoot because someone else would be rotating and so on. So there was this, there are skill sets acquired as to how you do that. I think Far North Queensland now has an amazing film studio. An amazing film studio. And I can't wait to be in there shooting in it. An amazing film. We don't have a tank. We don't have a Horizon tank. We don't have an underwater tank. It would be a great asset. I think one day we will have a tank. Because when you think about it, Far North Queensland had amazing projects. I came to Far North Queensland in the early 90s on the back of a movie shot up in Mosman called Sniper.
Okay.
So, and I knew some of the crew that worked on that, the stunt crew and so on, that worked on that. Tom Berenger, it was a little movie set in South American jungle or something, And then we had so many projects, and many of my crew I would see having coffee, McCrossan Street, because they'd come back to do other projects. You had the Pacific, Thin Red Line, amazing projects that would come. We brought back Ocean Girl for 3 years. We then did Pirate Islands, children's series. And in 2012, Lisa McCune's Reef Doctors, which was a lot of fun to make. The series itself wasn't as big a hit as H2O. We learned a lot of lessons out of that. That was a project driven largely by the partners in Germany to have that reef and rainforest and Mako. And, but it was a lot of fun to make because we had rainforest scenes, we had reef scenes, we had underwater scenes. It was a beautiful visual treat of Far North Queensland. And also these projects, these traditional projects, it's not an emerging filmmaker project. It's a factory, there's a lot of crew. There's 100+ crew, but you are providing skill setting and training. And that has been I take great pride in the fact that whether you're Margot Robbie or Liam Hemsworth or Phoebe Tonkin in H2O or Claire Holt, we gave a lot of actors their first break. We trained we had actors like Jeffrey Walker from Round the Twist that went into my Thunderstone, Ocean Girl and Thunderstone and so on. We had a lot, he started with me, he's in his 40s now, he's one of Australia's most successful, if not the most successful director, trained, and, we skill set a lot of people. And that's why it's valuable, because you can offer apprenticeships, internships, on-set experience. Nothing beats, people say to me, like, what should I do? Should I go to film school? I'm not an expert on film schools, but I can tell you that if you do an apprenticeship in a traditional way and you shadow, whether you're directing or producing or doing camera or, doesn't matter. I've got teachers in schoolrooms, I've got nurses, I've got wardrobe people, makeup people, lighting, camera, unit people, caterers, and so on. There's a whole gamut of 50 types of skill sets that are brought to the table. And so the training, having big productions up here, particularly Aussie productions, not just US productions, because I know that they come as well, but particularly local Aussie productions, whether it be children's drama or adult drama, they provide an enormously powerful spinning hub in the middle of the wheel, and they spin out skill sets that are later let people move from being junior camera assistants right through to award-winning camera operators.
I think that's so important. I think it's so important that we have a machine up here that is continuously turning. I guess for an emerging filmmaker or say camera wardrobe, to be able to have something local that they can tap into rather than maybe, giving up their job so they can work on one production and then they don't have any other work and they have to leave the region, which you don't want either. But I guess I do have a question around. I love your machine. It sounds like it's just well oiled. You've got something good there. You've obviously got very healthy leadership there as well. You've got your crew keep coming back to you time and time again. For someone who is, say, in wardrobe or in makeup or in camera or unit, how do they determine whether or not the production that they're going to go on, they've been offered a position, is right for them, do you think? Like, how do you determine that?
Okay, so I don't know. It depends what the production is the answer to that. If you're there for a salary and you just want to get paid and, get on with it, which many people do. I certainly did because I had a mortgage. So I had certainly started out and was driven like that most of my career. As a fact, I've got to make a living. So you don't generally pick and choose like that in the real world, because in the industry as such, because you're working with professional people and it's a job and you do your job to the best of your ability and you're protected by industrial provisions and it's safe, God willing, and all this sort of stuff. If you're doing, however, student films or emerging films or pro bono work or, then, okay, you can pick and choose who you want to bother doing it with because you're not going to get paid a lot, but you might be getting good experience. One of my assistants is a music teacher in the Gold Coast, a Thai lass, Paranya, who worked on the Bureau of Magical Things. And because we were doing scenes set in Thailand, she provided consultancy and advice, but also was one of my assistants. She just did the music to White Lotus. So, her experience and dabbling has led her into helping score a Hollywood production or, a big production. I think it depends on the job. You can't pick and choose always. You've got it's like any career, we all work jobs where we needed the dough and we basically did the job and you might get the experience. But if you're on a job where it's not safe, don't be there. If you're on a job where you're unappreciated or it's a toxic environment, don't be there. That's not going to be good for you on any basis. Do you know what I mean? The challenge, if you will, I don't think it's insurmountable because I'm quite optimistic about Far North Queensland. But the challenge is we work, this is from an industry point of view, we're working with a Brisbane-centric machine at the moment. That there's a lot of things going on in Brisbane and there have been a lot of things going on in the Gold Coast. What's going on globally with tariffs is changing the dynamic of the whole world at the moment. And it will be, it means there won't necessarily be those drivers. It provides an opportunity for Far North Queensland to break out of that bias, because Far North Queensland has stuff you cannot get in Southeast Queensland, for instance. And I haven't even touched on Outback Queensland, which is just a fabulous jewel waiting to be shot as well. But I think from a career point of view, there's a different things. There is emerging filmmakers or there's low budget filmmaking or where you don't have a substantive budget, but you're working for the experience. It's great experience. It's great experience. And look, we work in a world today where the largest streamers and broadcasters in the world are openly saying, I'm going to do this series because I saw this guy or girl series on a web series or on YouTube, and now we want to make a movie of that. That happens a lot. In fact, that used to be the exception. That's now the rule, people. So I actually think that's why I'm saying it's actually a good time to be emerging, because you can get from A to Z without going through a middleman. You can get to an audience without going through a middleman. You can get stuff on YouTube without going, but you still depends what you're doing. If you're doing a bigger drama or you're doing action or it requires other skill sets around you, then you need to be collaborative and collective about it.
Yes, I think it's an incredible opportunity, and we do have that unique advantage up here because we're used to doing more with less, so we're innovative in that way that we can work out.
All emerging filmmakers are used to doing more with less. Yes. That's the sort of that's the nature of the beast in terms of all emerging filmmakers do more with less because that's the nature of the challenge before them. But yeah, sure, in Far North Queensland there are but there are amazing locations here that counterbalance that. You can point, an iPhone or a camera here in any one direction and you've got incredible visuals. You can find extraordinary talent here. The Ocean Girl had a lead actress from Cairns High. The Bureau of Magical Things had Julian and Elizabeth Cullen from Cairns High. Amazing talent, extraordinary talent. I actually think I find better talent in Far North Queensland than often anywhere else.
Something in the water.
Something in the energy. Locally, because you got to make it happen yourself. It's not going to fall over you. I think that's a key part of it. And I think a lot of regional places are like that, but not all are blessed with the landscape that we've got. The arts community in Cairns is very strong and very vibrant, and we have great resources like the tanks, So we are very blessed to have that. And we have great energy and great enthusiasm. We also have great regional support for that. People up in Far North Queensland love what's going on. You go to the Clink Theatre in Port Douglas, can't get a ticket, That energy, that enthusiasm, that talent, that spins out, and those people go far. We bat above our weight big time. We're punching above our weight. In terms of all sorts of skill sets. And it's visually, in the acting sense, in the creative sense, in First Nations stories and so on. It's a really rich cultural context here. And I think that really benefits people who are emerging as filmmaking is storytelling, and if you're living in a place that's full of stories or generating stories, some of them are a bit idiosyncratic, I'll admit. Some of them are a bit weird. You do see characters up here. It's true. And that kind of helps keep your universe funky.
Yeah. So how do you take a North Queensland voice story and then make it so it fits a global or not fits?
Well, that's a great question. Yeah. And, the answer to that
it speaks to them.
Yeah, the answer to that's pretty simple. You remain true to the local voice. But frankly, if you're going to reach a global audience, if you're going to do anything on a higher budget, you're going to need a global audience. Because if you're just doing it for, 13 cousins and nephews, let them pay, If you're going to reach a global audience, we are now, we had Mako Mermaids was put up on YouTube the other day and in 4 weeks got 22 million hits. Ooh. We had 1.5 billion streams of H2O recently on Netflix. So we have a global audience.
That's very
But you need it if you're going to do big shows, with big challenges. But it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're reaching a global audience, you still need to remain true to the heart of the story. You still need to move people with the emotion of the story or the vision of the story or the human side of the story. That's got to be truthful. In fact, a lot of people enter and go, I'm going to do something that emulates, a Tarantino movie and blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to copy another story. That's great, but it's just going to be don't do a copy of another person's story. Whenever I've tried to copy others, including myself, it hasn't worked. So you need to think local. You need to feel local, think global. You need to be emotionally connected with something that will move people. You can do something that's a 2-minute TikTok and brings people to tears that goes viral globally, as a demonstration of that. And you can do stupid stuff for, I was going to say 98 minutes, but it's usually some boring 3-hour movie at Smithfield. And then you think, why did they pay $100 million for this? It's not working, you know. You could do Jar Jar Binks in Star Wars, you know. So I think when you set out to try and copy things, you know, because you want to be global, you know, it's already, you've put a hard task in front of yourself because it's not original. It doesn't have any of you in it. It doesn't have your emotional spirit in it. So you keep truthful to it. You know, I could think of 1 million, hopefully I can think of 1 million, but I can think of many stories that we could execute in Far North Queensland that would have global appeal because they work. And if they work and resonate, they may well work and resonate internationally. People aren't that different. I travel a lot, particularly in Asia. I travel a lot. And you know, my next vision is we will shoot in Far North Queensland, but we may shoot part of things in Asia and Far North Queensland. So we are the envy of most filmmakers that I meet in terms of Far North Queensland and the Cairns facilities and resources and the Australian financing, you know, system for filmmaking. The state government support in Screen Queensland of filmmaking is second to none. They just don't find a lot of that anywhere else. But at the end of the day, keep the stories true to yourself and true to the characters. And the global stuff will follow if it's got universal appeal. Clearly, if you're doing a project about Aussie rules or NRL or something, and it's going to be hard to translate in Texas or in Canada or in France sometime, not in France, but, you know, sometime if it's complex to follow, but then you can still do stories like that. But if there's a human angle on it, people will forgive the fact that they're not following all the rules. Do you know what I mean? But they're still following the because people are the same. That's what I'm saying.
That universal theme of that they can connect
Stories
with,
are about people and the human experience. And if you
experience,
kind of keep it rooted in that, then I mean, in kids' TV, there's kind of commonly accepted drivers, you know. Advice I got over the years differed, you know. The late Alison Nassell, who I worked with for many years, used to say it's like a roller coaster, Jonathan. Kids want to be, you know, really scared, they want to be apprehensive and a bit, you know, and then they want to be scared as the roller coaster comes down, and then it might be a quiet time, and then it goes up and goes down and so on. So there are different rhythms to it. Children like to, particularly at different ages, they like to, because people say children through it, but it's very different audiences, you know. Under 10s like certain type of programming. You know, Bluey, though, is for all ages, so I'm a huge rep for Bluey. I love
that, yeah.
And my granddaughter loves Bluey, so we watch together. It's a good co-viewing show. But you know, H2O was really aimed at 10 through 16, you know, at preteens, at tweens, you know. It was, a lot of my shows are about empowering young women because I believe we can't get enough of that stuff. Still the case today.
And it still resonates, and that's what I love. It
resonates
still
more
resonates.
than ever today.
Yeah.
I actually think since post-pandemic, it's actually gone up fourfold globally.
That's incredible.
Its audience. So it resonates more, not less. And you've seen the phenomena of the streamers. So Netflix now have 3 of our series on rotation. So, you know, we're very lucky like that. But it's resonating in various, you know, in 50 languages worldwide and in 180 countries worldwide. So it's, you know, it's global. But at the end of the day, it's not even about Mermaids H2O. It's about friendship.
Yes. And what was your expectation when you started that? Did you expect that this was going to have like this phenomenal?
That's a great question. I have no idea. I don't even know how to answer that one because at the time I conceptualized it, I thought, this is going to be overwhelmed by the underwater logistics. Is my story going to be okay? Because really it was about the characters. You know, the 3 individual girls had very different personalities. You know, I wanted to have someone who was pretty rigid, you know, Emma, who was the school captain. I wanted to have Ricky, who was a kick-ass, you know, calls a spade a shovel and didn't care, you know. And I wanted to have poor Phoebe in the middle as sort of like, I'm not sure which way to go, and I agree with both of you, that sort of person. And so I wanted to have that 3-pack, and I wanted to have that growth and the friendship that developed. But there was a lot of, there was an overwhelming amount of, I'd seen it before in other shows. I worked with Real Elephant on Elephant Princess, and I've worked with $1 Million animatronics on Horace and Tina, and previously with the Henson people, not from Henson's, but ex-Henson. So there was animatronics, it was quite complex in its time. And of course, Ocean Girl and all of not just the whale and not just the water, but the jungle stuff. We did a lot of that. And so I'd seen, lighting a rainforest at night is no picnic. No. Aside from the wait a while things, there's a lot of creepy things out there, and you just got to be careful. But look, my memory is that there was a lot of overwhelming amount of pre-production into how to execute the underwater, how to do the tails particularly, and the skill sets. Darko Tuscan, who's our stunt coordinator, did Keanu Reeves in The Matrix. A lot of The Matrix is Darko. So he brought the discipline, the training, but he also brought a mental training mindset, a martial arts mental training. I remember when we were in pre-production, not only in H2O, but of course on Mako, that followed the rhythm of that, Mako Mermaids. I used to go down to the newsagents and get all these gossip magazines, and then I would coat them, in plastic coating, in the office. They'd put them through the machine. Then I'd put a ring through the ring binder, hole punch and ring, and then I would throw them into the water in the swimming pool while the girls and guys were in training, and they would sit cross-legged at the bottom of the pool and read the articles, the trashy articles of the magazine, because they were getting used to being down there for 1 minute to 2 minutes in a Zen way where they were relaxing. And so they would just sit, and eventually they were able to swap articles down there. So you had like behind the scenes footage of them just chilling out down there, reading the magazine. I'll finish with that one. Look at this, and the more they were, so a lot of it was mental. Yes. A lot of the training was mindset, and like in martial arts, about the way it's the same in terms of breathing, same in terms of relaxing when you're diving, A lot of it is in the mind, not just in the abs. It's movie making, so you didn't really need to swim for 1 kilometre. You just needed to swim from point A to point B and try not to hit a rock on the way, because you can't see much. Because you can't see. No, particularly Phoebe, she tended to bump into a lot of things. But
you got to pretend you can see.
You've got to be acting and emoting. Well, in the end, Isabel Durant, who was in Mako Mermaids and Dance Academy, she was in scenes where she was crying underwater and would just hang out underwater in a 20-second shot where she was emoting underwater. That was amazing to see that. So yes, you had to basically, so a lot of it was not so much I'm super fit and I can, a lot of it was Pilates, it's true, and the tails are not easy, as I've explained, but a lot of it was, you've still got to bring your own craft skills as an actor underwater, and have the mentality, the mental attitude that same when you're working as an actor in any extreme action sequence, whether it's with dinosaurs that you can't see, you imagine, or whether it's in the, in the rainy season here where you're, soaking wet.
Pretend you're not.
and you got to pretend, that you're still crying or you're happy in love, and, and so, it's part of the craft skill, but underwater is particularly challenging.
There's so much we have discussed today that I think is, taking the big filmmaking world and really breaking that down to emerging filmmakers, and particularly in the region as well. You're a sponsor of Understory, which I think is great. It's not just you sharing these stories, but actually supporting us in the region as well. What advice would you give to filmmakers who are thinking about submitting to the festival?
Understory Film Festival, whether it be the high school or the principal Understory Film Festival, is one of the most important Australian film festivals. It's where the emerging talent of Far North Queensland will be spotted. It's where you can make a connection between your idea, your vision, and an audience that's thirsty to have a look at that vision. aside from the fact that the Understory now has kudos and prestige, that it's being watched by others. We live in a world where people hover around these film festivals in the hope of finding these little jewels. So you just don't know. And it's not just about recognition. It's about reward as a filmmaker, that people can share your story. And I think the Understory Film Festival is a key part of Far North Queenslanders being able to share their vision, share their story. And for that reason, I would highly encourage people to submit, have a go. It doesn't matter if your film wins awards or doesn't win awards. Being seen, getting it out there, having the confidence and developing your confidence is a key part of emerging as an artist anyway. And so speaking as someone who had many knockbacks along the way, but still had the joy to have contributed or had a go, I think it's a really good event.
And are you kind of one of those people that are hanging around seeing if you can spot new talent or new?
Not personally. I'm delighted to sponsor it because I think it's a key part of developing that talent. I see my role or our role to actually, because we do children's TV, and I would love to think that somewhere, someday, emerging talent will be as passionate as I was as a young person in doing stories for children, because they deserve their own voice, their own stories. And so I hope we'll see some of that content. But whatever it is, whether it be documentaries, whether it be drama, whether it be comedy or whether it be serious, whether it be First Nation stories, whether it be high school stories or stories about your Labrador, it doesn't matter. I like stories about Labradors, by the way, big dog lover. Whatever the story is, have a go, join Understory, because you'll be seen, you'll enjoy the process, you'll also meet other filmmakers, and that too is part of the journey.
Oh, I love that. I love that you're giving back to the community. And I think that's phenomenal. Jonathan, thank you so much.
It was okay.
For joining me today. And we can't wait to see what is coming to the region in the future. And thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.